Hey, what's up everybody? Hope you're having an awesome day. I have a really fun texturing tip for you. I was doing some texturing of a motorcycle and I was looking up reference images and I kept coming across these really cool images of these tailpipes, and all these exhausts had this really cool coloration on the end of them. Now this is a pretty extreme example because these are actually ones that you buy pre-burned like this. But all of these exhaust pipes have this kind of coloration at the end, and here's even some DIY kits on how to do this yourself. The DIY ones where you burn them, they're a little bit more subtle. The saturation is not there, but it has that really cool gradient effect, and I thought we would go over how to do that in Cinema. So we're going to do that today, and let's jump right in by making a new texture. And I'm using Octane, but you can do this in Cinema 4D very easily. I'll be using the gradients in Cinema 4D, so you can do that. All right, so we're going to make a new material, and one of the newer features, not really new, it's been out for a while, but under material type, they used to just have diffuse, glossy, and specular. Now they have a few other ones. Metallic is the one we're going to use. And if we throw that onto our tailpipe, we have that really nice shiny chrome look. And this is already looking pretty hot. We'll dial down our HDRI a little bit. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is figure out what channel we're going to put this color into. So if we play with the diffuse and we add a really nice color to the diffuse, nothing's going to happen. But if we go down to the specular and add that same color into the specular channel, you can see that this is where all of our color information is going to come from. So that gives us some idea of where to put the gradient. So we'll clear out that color, and instead we're going to put a gradient in here. So we'll twirl down the texture and we're going to add a Cinema 4D gradient. You can also do a Cinema 4D Octane one if you go into the gradient here. We'll just use the Cinema 4D one so that more people will be able to follow along here. All right, so in our gradient, if we go back and look at these inspiration, you see that we go from blue to a purple and then to a yellow. So we're going to do that in Cinema. So we'll start out with that blue color, and we'll double click this knot and find a nice blue. And then we'll add another knot by clicking down here, and we'll make that one more that purple color. And we'll make a final knot, which will be the yellow. So those three colors will give us our gradient. And then at the end, we probably want this to not be pure white, but more kind of like a off-white. All right, so here we go. We got our gradient. It's already showing up here, but it needs to be mapped correctly onto our object. And we're going to do that by changing the projection mode to flat. Right now it's UVW mapping. We'll go to flat. And it's a little bit tricky to kind of get this to line up properly. But if you play around with this texture mode right here, it'll be a little bit easier, because then at least you can get a visual of what you're doing. So if we hit rotate, we start to rotate this around. You can see that we're not really seeing anything, so we're going to try the other direction. So if we rotate it this way, you can see that we're kind of finding it. And then at this point, it's just a matter of kind of dialing this in. So if we flop it 90 degrees this way, and then we move it over this way, you can still see, because my object's not perfectly squared away, it's not perfect, but we can kind of dial it in and get it pretty close here. Once we get it visually close, we can go into the tag itself and play around with that a little bit. So you can see that it's not quite matching perfectly at the end. So we'll probably get it close and then maybe rotate it a little bit more, just so we're in the ballpark. So something like that looks pretty good. And then we can go to our tag, and under here we have the offset and length. We can play around with the length and just kind of stretch it out a little bit. That way it's going to cover the entire object. So if we stretch it out all the way, now it's covering our entire object. All right, so now obviously our gradient is way too long, but we can play around with these knots now. So to highlight all of our knots, you can just click and drag and highlight all of them, and then you'll get kind of a timeline and you can play around with these. And if we compress these, you're gonna see that we're able to sort of dial in exactly where this is gonna show up. And then we'll move this one over as well, and now we're able to pretty easily specify exactly where we want these. All right, so that is looking pretty good right on the end there. Perfect. All right, so that's looking very good. We have that gradient, everything's looking good. The problem is that it's a little bit too uniformly shiny. It's a little bit computer generated. So we're gonna add a little bit of roughness in here. Now, if you've never used the roughness, I'll just add a noise to kind of show you what's going on here. And you can see that already, instead of having that really sharp specular, it's kind of roughened out. Based on this noise, the black and white is where it's going to have rough parts and shiny parts. If we go ahead and play with the clip so that it's straight up black and white, you can see that this part right here has extreme shine and this part's pretty rough. So if we just played around with our noises, we could get a nice kind of variation and break up the pattern. But obviously using a noise is still computer generated, and you're probably not going to get a better result than using just like a scratch map, which is an actual real life image. So we'll just go to our texture and go to Cinema 4D Octane. We'll add a image texture, and inside of there we'll drag one of these scratch maps. And now you can see that we have these really nice little scratches on here. If we do a compare, let's do a store render buffer, and let's go to our roughness and we'll clear that out. Then you can see a before and after, and you can see that the difference is pretty substantial. You can see that just by adding that little bit of roughness with some scratches in there, it makes a really big difference. I hope you guys found that useful. I'm going to give away this model and this texture, so just look below for a download link and you can open it up and play around with it a bit yourself. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you next time. Ciao.